What's up, guys? Today I'm going to give you a quick update on how the K969 rebuild is going. Sorry I haven't made a video in a while. I've been kind of busy the past couple weeks trying to redesign this max steering mod. It was okay before, but it definitely had some issues that kind of bothered me, so I redesigned it to where I eliminated those problems. As you can see from the original design, I had a wide T-mount with these little straight tie rods, and it worked okay, but it definitely didn't make the wheels go parallel both directions, and I couldn't get both wheels to hit 180 degrees at the same time. So as you know, as well as this one worked, it definitely left more to be desired. So I decided to completely redesign it, and I made a little bit smaller T-mount. And then I had to make tie rods that are basically double jointed here. It was the only way for me to actually get both wheels to hit 180 degrees at the same time and also keep them parallel both directions. So I went through dozens of different little prototypes to get to where I am right now. And I mean, it's not perfect. There's definitely some improvements I'm going to make, but for now this is good enough to show you the concept of how it works. I got to get rid of some slop. There's a little bit of sloppy movement in in the tie rod and everything. I'm going to tighten up on a couple different revisions that I'll do after I'm done showing you this, and then that should stiffen everything up to where everything is nice and taut while it's moving and there's no sloppy movement anywhere. I mean, it's really not that bad. I mean, I could probably get away with the way it is right now, but I just wanted to give you an idea of where I am at this point in time, because I know I haven't really uploaded anything in a while, so I just wanted to show you. Most of my electronics are almost, I mean, I soldered mostly everything up, so they're easy to just throw in. It's almost, going to take me no time to put the electronics on after I was done doing this mod, but it just took me a long time to redo this. This kind of took up my most of my days trying to get this figured out, because every little thing I did was a big difference, and then most of the things didn't work, whether the tires wouldn't be parallel the whole time or I couldn't get them both to fully reach 180 degrees both directions. But this is basically what I had to come up with. The issue is that say the wheels are about where the little ball joints are, about say 43 millimeters apart. Well, when they turn all the way over, there's actually a 3 to 6 millimeter difference that needs to change. So it needs to go from say 43 millimeter to 46 millimeter. And when you're using little straight tie rods like this, they won't compensate for that change in distance when the wheels move left or right from center. So to fix that, I basically had to make tie rods that could lock straight, but then also bend and then lock almost 90 degrees. And that's how I actually fixed that situation to where the tires would stay perfectly parallel the whole time, back and forth. So yeah, this is an old little prototype. This one's kind of beat up from testing and stuff. So the concept is pretty simple though. It's just two little 3D prints they connect to the ball joints, and there's I put a little tiny brass rod through them so they can swivel on the little brass rod, and then they lock into place when they hit the max distance they need to hit, and then when they go back, they go straight. So when it pulls, it'll go straight, and then it can push back that way, and then as it comes around the other way, it'll bend around to push the wheel all the way around. So, okay, now that you get the idea of how that looks, I'll give you more of an idea on the car. So you can see how that's how you get both wheels to basically max out. So I can get them to go pretty much 180 degrees both directions, and they also stay pretty even the entire time. And they have a little bit of toe out, which is what I wanted. So I have a little bit of toe out, and then of course they stay pretty much even all the way over. Sorry, I'm just trying to do this with my fingers when the servo's not on, and I shouldn't really be doing this, but I'll turn it on the radio in a second too, so I can show you with the radio on. But that's pretty much what I was looking for. I couldn't get that from this design. It couldn't make that happen, so that's why I had to switch over to this kind of design. And to strengthen up those little 3D prints, I actually covered them with super glue. So that's why they probably look a lot shinier. And that really hardens the material to where it's like a lot stronger, a lot stiffer, but these can break still, so I mean, they can shatter. I made the mistake of making this one ahead of time and putting super glue all over it before snapping these little cups onto the ball joints. And then since I covered everything in the super glue, it was too stiff to actually, I need a little bit of flex to get it onto the ball joint, so it shattered when I try to snap them on there. So yeah, I got ahead of myself covering this thing up with the super glue to try to strengthen it up. So what I did for the other version there, I just super glued pretty much the whole middle section and left the outer little cups you know, untouched, and then I snapped them on and then went back and put super glue on them after they were on. These little joints, they're good, but like with 3D prints here, like they wear out quickly, so you only get a couple good little snap on and snap offs until these get too worn down to where they'll just kind of pop off on their own after enough movement. So I really only wanted to snap it on one time and leave it on, so I pretty much used a brand new set, and as soon as I popped it on, I put super glue on it and then kept it on, so it has the strongest hold on there without having the, you know, the accidental popping off that might happen if it was loose. So that's how I strengthen them up. And also you can see that you don't see the little brass rod in there because I melted it in with my soldering iron. So I basically made a little hook, like a little 90-degree hook, and pushed it through the hole all the way through, and then had, you know, an extension piece go this way, and then I just take my soldering iron and I press down on it and just melt it into the PLA, and then I take a little bit more of PLA and go over the top of it and kind of just cover it up so it's nice and buried in there, so it can't pop out on accident or anything. Like it's basically one with this 3D print now. It's not coming out. And obviously after the super glue goes over too, it's, you know, it's solid now. So this is pretty much the design I had to come up with to fix all these issues. It was definitely a pain in the ass to come up with this. I had to go through multiple different little variations of these joints. That's why I had to make a smaller T-mount. If I use this really wide one, I'd have to make some really small little joints. And I mean, these are already small enough, I could barely get these to work at this size. There's just not enough room because they need to lock in. So, you know, the little arm has to be long enough to kind of like lock inside there and get stuck. And then when it goes this way, it has to hit that little bit of 3D print, and then it gets stuck right there. That's how that works. And this is how many different prototypes I went through. Yeah, so that's why I spent the last couple weeks going over different versions to figure out exactly which ones would work. So yeah, that's how much I had to, you know, I had to try. Eventually, this is what I came up with. And here, let me turn everything on so I can show you with the servo. All right. So yeah, I also have a different servo that's coming that I'm going to replace this one with, because these little 5G servos aren't very strong. So I'm going to replace it with a 9G servo. But I mean, for what it is, it's pretty good. This is like a $5 or $6 little servo, little metal gear one that replaces the old stock plastic gear one. But this is still a lot of work for this little servo. So I'm actually going to get a, it's going to be a metal case, metal gear 9G servo that's actually just as small as one of these servos. So I can, it's not exactly the same size, it's a couple millimeters off, but it's small enough to fit in here, and then I can just put some 3D print material to kind of compensate for the size difference to fit in this little bracket housing here that holds it. And then that should be a much better servo to do this. It's got almost like 4,000 kilogram per centimeter torque compared to this one's probably less than 1,000, you know. So, but I mean, it works. It's pretty good for what it is. I mean, the small little movements aren't the greatest, but I mean, it's doable. I'm trying to do this one-handed, so you can see how it swings out, and then it has to bend and then lock into place to make sure there's enough tension on that tire to go all the way over. And then it straightens out in there when it goes the opposite direction, while this one bends into place to push that one all the way over. And I know the wheels are kind of almost, I dremeled out a lot of material here to make room for the wheels when they go in there, so the wheels can move. They're not really hitting anything. There's not a lot of friction there, so these wheels can still spin even if they rub on there a little bit, which is fine. And I also made a little bracket down in here, like a little stopper, to keep the wheels from going too far, because these can actually go a little bit further past that point to where it's like a negative angle there, and I don't want to go that far. I mean, I'm already pushing the limit here, going full 180 degrees, so I don't need it to go like 185 to 190. That's way too much. So I put those there just to make sure it stops it, and to also keep the servo from pushing it too far. Because if they do go too far and it actually goes kind of negative, it can kind of get stuck and locked into place where this little joint can't release. So it keeps it from getting locked by having those there. And the wheels can still spin while they touch it. It's just a little bit of 3D print there, but it barely leaves any friction on the wheel. So yeah, that's where I'm at so far with the Max steering mod. This is much better than my original version, and of course I already made those other videos with the original version, and it was almost like a waste because I'm not even going to be doing that design anymore. I've completely switched those up, but at least those are good videos to kind of give you an idea of where I started and how I got to this point, and maybe give you ideas on how you want to do yours. I'm not really going to be able to make this available to anyone yet, and I'm still, like I said, in the process of changing the designs a little bit to kind of get rid of the small little imperfections. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I'm never really happy until it's like exactly the way I want it, and that's why this has been taking so long, because I've been just changing everything. I mean, every little millimeter of difference that I tried would either make it worse or make it a little bit better, and that's why it took forever to try. I had to keep redesigning the print, then printing it out, and then trying it, and then doing that over and over again. And sometimes, I mean, I can't just pop these together. Sometimes I have to actually shave off some material with, say, like an X-Acto knife or my snips, and kind of grind them down and smooth them out a little bit, because there was a lot of interference that I was getting in the suspension tower. So I had to clear out a lot of material in there. I'll turn off this battery. Let me see if I can get a little bit more light in there. It's gonna be hard to get a good angle. But yeah, I had to Dremel out a lot of material inside there, so the T-bracket, pretty much right where the ball joint hooks to the 3D print. The 3D print piece would stick out like another extra millimeter or two from the T-mount, and it would scrape and rub on the inside of the suspension tower, and almost basically just where it's touching the springs. So I had to sit there and just keep dremeling and just grinding away material until there was no more friction or interference in there, and eventually got it to the point to where it's not hitting anything. But I took away a lot of material from this suspension tower that I was afraid that it would get a lot weaker and maybe break, especially if I pushed too much pressure on it. But luckily it still held up, and then I just covered everything with super glue to strengthen it all up. So it's actually pretty strong for how thin and thin of a profile it is, and there's like not a lot of material left, but it managed to hold up. So the suspension's holding up and the steering's doing good. So this is pretty much right where I want it, and I'm going to stick with this for now, and then I will pretty much focus on putting all the electronics on next, and then I will go over the process of what I had to do setting up those electronics. So that'll be like the next video or so, is installing the electronics. And yeah, if I gave away these 3D prints, like, you would have to do a lot of extra work. That it's just, you're not going to just drop in these 3D prints and everything's going to work together. Like, and if I made the 3D print like thinner, it would actually be a lot weaker. If like you printed it out at this thin of a profile, it probably wouldn't even be able to hold up and stand the force I'm putting on it. So it's actually kind of a better idea to print it out thick and then grind away the material. And for some reason, that's just stronger than trying to like thin down the profile and then printing it out smaller. It actually comes out weaker that way. So this is the best method to do it. So it's hard for me to just be like, yeah, here, this is what you got to do, because I had to do so much extra tedious work to even get this, to even function correctly without getting a lot of interference, scraping inside there. And then this T-mount, I had to change the length and the width multiple times to get it to where it's working. And I also added these little pieces here to kind of stop this from going too far that way. And actually, it's really not even needed because it really never goes that far. But I have those there just in case. They're kind of like braces to where it'll hit. But this bottom part actually matters. So when it goes back that way, it'll rub on this, it'll push. And that actually needed to be there, because if there was too much gap between the side of this T-bracket to this little piece of the joint, then it could be a little bit too sloppy in there. So it actually needs to rub up against there and then push off of it. When it straightens out, when it goes this way, it needs to hit it when it's going straight that way. But when it opens up to turn, it pulls away from it. So when it goes back to straight, to turn that way, it needs to hit and kind of rub on it without getting snagged or anything. Yeah, this is gonna fall out, so I keep putting it upside down. But yeah, I mean, you get the idea. This is where I had to go to get this to work the way it is. So yeah, this is my little 3D printed little mount for all my electronics. So I'll put that there. And like I said, I soldered pretty much most of my electronics up. So the next video will cover most of this stuff. Pretty much mounting everything is what the next video is going to be. And then I'll probably do a video on setting up this the Furitek ESC, the Momentum. Because I can set this up on a Wi-Fi app through this little thing here. It can hook up to my phone, and then I can basically tune the car on a phone app and change a lot of stuff through there. So I'll show that when it's done and ready. I got a bunch of 5-volt regulators for different stuff. Like this is for FPV equipment. These are I have one for the servo because I want a dedicated 5-volt regulator for the servo to be able to handle the power. And then another 5-volt regulator for all my LEDs. So this one will be for my headlights and taillights, and this is a switch that I can hook up to one of the channels in the receiver, and it's an on and off switch, so I can turn the headlights and taillights on and off on a switch on my radio. And then this is the Wi-Fi module for the digital LEDs, so I can mess with those from the phone app, a different phone app for the digital underglow LEDs, change color, make them do different, sequences, flashing or whatever. And yeah, surprisingly, all this can fit in here underneath this body. I mean, it barely fits, but it does. So I'll lay it down, you know, I'll lay everything flat along here, so each one side by side, and then like one little piece goes down in here, and then the 5-volt regulators sit here on top of the servo housing, so tucked underneath there. So the ESC will be here, the receiver, which I already de-pinned majority of the pins off of it. I just left a couple on for testing right now, but I'll desolder off those pins, and then I'll just solder all the wires directly to it for power, for each signal line and everything, and then that'll be it. So this will probably sit like flat right here. So I'll go over all this when I do the mounting and when it's done, and then I'll cut these shorter too. So I'll snip them shorter, and then I'll make sure that this length is the same, but I'll significantly shorten these. I do this on my drones and stuff. Like if I have antennas that are too long and I need to shorten them up, I've done this before. You just got to measure this exposed part here and make sure that it's the exact same length, so you can just strip off the little ground casing that they have around it, and then leave that exact amount, and it's going to do the same thing. It'll function the same. And it's not like I'm going to be going very far with this thing. I don't need a lot of distance to drive an RC car. You know, unlike my quadcopters and stuff, like those can fly, you know, a mile or even further if they really needed to. So the antennas are more important on my drones than, say, this little RC car, which I'll be driving, you know, a few feet in front of me. So, but there's just no room for all this antenna. I don't need this much. I don't feel like trying to curl it all up and tuck it away. I could do that, but for how like tight and tidy this build is, I want everything to be nice and neat and clean, and all the wiring to be tight as well. So I'll make sure everything's real short and just the length it needs to be to reach everything. And that's pretty much all I can do to make sure everything fits underneath this P1 GTR body. But once I'm done with that, obviously it's ready to go. It's ready to start driving around. I have this DasMikro V6 Gyro that I'll be installing. This one's different than the V5. The V5, you can just, there's two connectors, you can connect it in, and then you can, there's a little dials on here that you can change the gain settings for the gyro on the gyro there. But on this one, you can't do that. You have to hook it up to, you know, channel 3 or whatever extra channel you have on your receiver, and then you can change the gain for the gyro on your radio. So if you do ever get one of these DasMikro V6 receivers, just realize you cannot adjust the gain from the gyro itself. So if you don't use an aftermarket receiver or an aftermarket, you know, radio and everything, you're not going to be able to adjust the gyro settings, and it's not going to work right, and you're going to wonder why, you know, what's going on. If you want to have one that can do that, then you need to get the V5, the version before this one, which still has the little dial on here to where you can adjust it without having to set it up on a channel on your radio, and you can use it on other cars. I do have some other reviews coming, like the LDRC 1803, the NSX. I'm going to do a review on that one, and I'm going to add a V5 to it, you know, and show how that, you know, gyro works on that, because a lot of people have been saying that's the best gyro for that build, and also it's the cheapest one. These, you know, run about 20 bucks depending on where you get them, and they're the best for the price so far that I've seen. So, yep, so I'll have to solder this up to this guy as well for the rest of my electronics, and then I'll put that all on top of there, and then this guy will be ready to start driving. So I know you guys are, you know, excited to see this thing driving. I'm sorry that it's been taking so long, but, you know, I have a bunch of stuff going on, and I really wanted to get the steering working like almost perfect before I even decided to put it all back together, because it's a lot easier to work on getting this steering design all set up without having all the electronics in the way while I'm trying to like take parts off, put parts in, you know. So it's better to have everything off while I was designing this. So that's why I couldn't really go ahead and do all the electronics yet, but at least I did most of the soldering already, so it's ready to go. I just gotta mount this back on and then double-sided tape everything into place, and then solder some wires to where they need to be, and just tuck everything away, and then it's good. It's good to go. Suspension's good, and that's about it. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys. You know, if If you have any questions or anything, just give me a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer them. But just hang tight. I'll get the next few videos out as soon as I can. And then, like I said, I'll start reviewing some other RC cars as well, like the LDRC, NSX. And then I also have those 1/43 scale little cars, the one that has the BMW M3 GTR little body on it. It looks like the Need for Speed Most Wanted one. I have that. I actually have a couple different versions of that one, which that's set up for racing and drifting. I'll probably set one that's like designated for drifting and set up one for racing. But I'll also do a bunch of mods to those little cars to make them, you know, to try to max out the steering and the suspension, all that kind of stuff. I'll do videos on those, as well as the LDRC. I will definitely do some mod videos on that, getting as much steering as I can, doing, you know, suspension mods to it, because the suspension they have on there is pretty, I mean, it's okay, but it's kind of pretty garbage. I want to have some actual springs and stuff on there, so I'll do some videos on that as well. But once again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.